All right, moving on, the alternative asset space is a complex and fragmented market with many investment opportunities such as private equity, capital markets, hedge funds and commodities. And in the coming years, private capital markets are expected to experience robust growth. So to help us understand better, joining me in the studio is Willie Cheng, the Chief Operating Officer of Alta. Good morning, Willie Cheng.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so being the Southeast Asia's largest digital marketplace for alternative assets, what are the key trends you're seeing in the field, especially in Southeast Asia and perhaps in Malaysia specifically?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start really quickly by explaining what an alternative asset is. So most people, they invest their money, they put it in the bank, they buy public equities. So basically they'll go to stock markets and they'll buy and sell companies that we're familiar with. And what we're seeing is that more and more people are really demanding and trying to invest in things that are not so easily accessible. And I think as companies and economies and people mature and technology starts advancing, that demand becomes stronger and stronger. So we really want to become the platform to allow people to invest in those types of companies, assets, and opportunities. Specifically in Malaysia, we work with many high growth companies and we actually support them in raising money and really helping develop, whether it's the latest agri-tech product, whether it's the latest med-tech product, right? And these are all companies that we work with very closely, that we want to support and help build the Malaysia ecosystem as well.
How about the markets or trends in the Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is that the overall allocation, so the percentage of money that both individuals and institutional investors are putting into alternative assets is increasing. So in Singapore, Temasek actually in 2022, it was the first time ever that over 50% of the allocation of their investments were actually into private market products.
Okay, how does these trends that you mentioned just now create opportunities as well as give impact to the Malaysian market specifically? And also, what are the factors that drive the growth of the alternative assets?
Yeah, so what happens is that a lot of companies, and we see this in Malaysia as well, it's very hard for them to access capital, to access money to grow their businesses. And normally what people will do is they'll go to the bank and try to get a loan, or if they're big enough, maybe they can go and IPO on Bursa, right? But what we do is we're able to target some of these smaller companies. They may be a little bit earlier in their growth cycle, and we can actually go and help them fundraise. And we're actually able to tap our Alta community, just in Malaysia alone, is over 20,000 different investors to help fund different projects.
So if there's investors out there that wish to invest in alternative assets, what are the factors that they should look at or consider into before investing? And also, what are the pros and cons doing investment for alternative assets, and as well as the regulatory requirements needed? Yeah,
sure. So first of all, in terms of the different considerations, I think what we're trying to do is to try to make it just like any other investment product. So if I'm going to be investing in a stock, let's say, I should be thinking about, oh, how good is this company? How do you think this company is going to be performing in the overall economy long term? But that really should be all I'm thinking about. So some of the things that you see in alternative asset investments today that are really troublesome, technology risk. What if I go to a platform and there's a problem, right, and the site crashes or it goes away? Sometimes there's regulatory risk, right? Oh, the laws are not really clear and I don't know how protected I am. And sometimes there's counterparty risk too. So if I'm buying something, how do I know that the seller is selling me something that's genuine, that they're not going to run away? Or the other way around, if I'm selling something, how do I know the buyer is really good for the money, right? So what we do as a marketplace is we get rid of those three risks: the regulatory risk, the technology risk, the counterparty risk, so that you can be very comfortable. You're dealing with a regulated market, we're licensed as well, and all you really need to think about is what are the merits of this particular investment product. So that's been a real problem with the alternative asset space, and it is still something that we see quite a lot, is that, hey, I really have to worry about all these other things that I don't have to worry about if I was going to buy or sell a stock on Bursa.
That's about the pros and cons. But what about the technicality? Can you explain the technicality when you wish to invest in alternative assets, and also what are the metrics used to determine the value?
Yeah, so it is actually very much like a, excuse me, like a public market. So we do have a website and we're about to launch an app as well. So it's really as simple as you log in. You can actually see all the different investment opportunities on our platform. So that can be on your PC, on your laptop, or on your mobile device as well. And yeah, it's really just as simple as you can see the last traded price of whatever it is. In Malaysia, we do a lot of crowdfunding campaigns as well. So the price is actually basically there for the different companies or projects that we're working on. click a few buttons, and basically your investment is completed.
How about the common investment structures for these alternative assets?
Yeah, so it really depends. And alternative assets, it's meant to be very, very broad. So in our headquarter market in Singapore, basically any financial security we're actually able to deal in and put onto our platform for people to invest in. So when I say any financial product, it can be an equity of a private company, it can be a fixed income like a bond product, it can be a real estate, it could be a fund, and it can actually even be like a luxury asset as well. In Malaysia, we're a little bit more specialized. So the main products of focus here are equity products. We have managed some and placed out some micro funds. And we've actually also created some very interesting securities where we can actually arrange it so that there's a revenue share. And for people who invest, they actually get a share of the revenue that the company generates and earns as well.
Okay, can you share what are the types of alternative asset and which one is best suited for market volatility that we're facing right now?
Yeah, so the different types, I think, as I mentioned, right? So it's all the different financial instruments that I think we know, but there tend to be the ones that are much more difficult to access, right? So equities of private companies, so these might be companies that are a little bit smaller, they're not quite ready to go IPO, or they can even be really big companies, like let's say SpaceX, right? Which is, you know, associated with Elon Musk. People are very excited about, you know, Discord. Stripe is a big payment company. So all of these different equities are not listed on any market. So these are companies that we are actually able to source some inventory and make available to investors. Besides equities, they can be certain bond products, they can be real estate assets, and we've even got some very exciting assets on some of our marketplaces, like let's say art. People like to invest in art, but it's very hard, right? Sometimes you invest in a big painting, first of all, to have enough money to buy it. And secondly, once you've decided you're ready to sell, right, where do you sell it and what marketplace do you use? So we want to make it as simple as possible. So one, you don't have to put in a huge amount of money. You can actually buy a fraction of a piece.
Oh.
Yes. And then two, we want to be the marketplace, right, where you can actually sell it as easily as possible. You also asked about kind of like which assets are better to invest in when, you know, certain phases of the economy. That's actually really hard to answer. And I think it's really up, and we want to make it empower the investor to make their own decisions. And a lot of times the investors are able to work with their financial advisors. And yeah, I think you see certain patterns if it's a high interest rate environment, if the job market is weak, or if economy A or economy B is doing well, right? Certain sectors are better. Our mission is to just try to make the marketplace as big and as powerful as possible so that investors have the choice to decide and allocate as they see fit.
All right, we want allow me to dive more into your business, Alta's. Can you share more information about Alta's entry itself into Malaysian market and how's the response like so far?
Yeah, so we've been here for several years. I think since 2016 or 17. We actually operate under the RMO scheme, Recognized Market Operator, which is a license that's granted to us from the Securities Commission. So we've actually sponsored and led several different deals with our client companies. And most of these are high growth companies, everything from new technologies to agricultural. So one of the companies that I was just working with very recently is Musang Valley. So the leader in the durian space. And they actually have a very, technologically advanced and IoT powered plantation in Central Peninsula. So yeah, it was actually very exciting. But I guess it hopefully gives you just a sense of all the different types of companies that we can sponsor and work with as well. So.
Diversity, right?
Yes.
Okay, what about the awareness? What's your plans for outreach and also awareness bidding, especially in Malaysia?
Yeah, I think awareness, even things like this, right? Just trying to get our name out, right? I think that within the RMO and the crowdfunding space, we're already a pretty well-known and established brand. One of the things that really sets us apart is our Southeast Asia presence. So not only do we consider ourselves a market leader here in Malaysia, but we're also a market leader in Singapore and Indonesia and several of the other markets that we're in. The other thing that really helps us to build awareness is just to continue to increase the different number and pipeline of deals that we're working with. And again, normally what a lot of other crowdfunding platforms will do is they'll help certain companies raise money. But what we want to do is, in addition to just helping companies raise money, to really be their partner and help them along in their journey as they grow. So after we help our companies raise money, we can actually also provide other value-added services, everything from marketing, investor relations. And again, because of our regional and global presence, we can actually build awareness for our partner companies outside of Malaysia as well.
Okay, probably moving forward, what are your short-term and also long-term goals for Alta especially, and also the alternative assets in general?
Yeah, so I think what we really are trying to do is to integrate our overall Alta platform across all of our different offices. So in our headquarters market in Singapore, we have a very active exchange, and it's actually connected to over 1 million different investors all throughout the world. And what we're trying to do, and we are working very closely with different regulators and partners here, is to try to bring a lot of the different deals and the partner companies that we work with here in Malaysia onto our global platform in Singapore to, again, build awareness of these companies and actually allow investors from all sorts of different countries to actually invest in the story of Musang Valley or Interlight or a lot of the other companies that we're working with here in Malaysia.
All right, to all potential investors out there,
Yes.
if they wish to invest in AA, how do they reach Alta?
Oh, it's actually very simple. So you can actually just come to our website. I believe it's alta.com.my and sign up. And it's a very, very straightforward and seamless process. And again, we do have a lot of very exciting deals that are on offer.
All right, that is Willy Cheng, the Chief Operating Officer of Alta. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us on AWANI this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.